Today on Hidden Struggles, I'm joined by a woman whose journey will resonate with so many, especially those who've ever felt silenced, judged, or stuck in a life they didn't choose. Her story isn't about shock, it's about survival, self worth, and the courage to rewrite your future, even when the odds are stacked against you. Let's welcome her to the conversation. Jada,
Sorry.
welcome to Hidden Struggles.
Thanks so much, Lady C. It's great to be here today to chat with you.
And I'm so glad that you took time out of your busy schedule to have this chat. And what we want to do right now is just kind of take you back to your childhood when you were a teenager. You want to kind of talk about what it was like growing up as one of Jehovah's Witnesses?
I was born and raised as third generation JW, just taking it back to when I was a young child. Even though we couldn't celebrate Christmas or birthdays or anything, we always had like family party days, and our family was very, very, very close knit. I had a great family, but you get into the teenage years, and anybody that was raised as a Jehovah's Witness knows you have a very strict upbringing when it comes to the teenage years. There's no secular education past grade 12. Even if you earn a scholarship at school, you are not going to college or university. And dating was only if you're going to get married. So dating in your teenage years in high school was against the rules. There was no school dances, there was no prom that you were allowed to go to. So, being really restricted like that was not me. I wasn't. I was the type that needed to be a free bird for sure. And so I was the extremely rebellious teenager. And I ended up actually dating someone in high school who actually was a witness but was not baptized, a little bit younger than me. And because we were, completely banished from supposed to be dating, especially because he wasn't baptized, we decided to actually run away together. I was 18 years old, and we ran away to try and elope. Which, thank God that didn't work out. But my parents actually found out where we were because they knew who I would call. They knew I would call my cousin to let him know that I was safe. And they actually tapped his phone. They had the police do that, and they found us because this is, years before cell phones or computers or anything like that, right? I actually left a note in the mailbox telling them that I was leaving. So they had no idea where I'd gone. But anyways, they came out and found us and hauled our butts back home. And with that, they split us up and we never saw each other again. But because of that, I was what was called publicly reproved. And that's where you have a judicial committee. And if any of the, JWs or XJW communities watching this, they'll probably know what a judicial committee is. It's a series of usually 3 older men who sit in a room with you, and I'm an 18-year-old girl, and they ask incredibly explicit questions to you about what you've done. So if they believe that there was any sexual activity going on, those questions will be all based on that. And it's absolutely disgusting. And it should never happen like that. A single young girl should never be allowed in a situation like that. It's very traumatizing. And it honestly, I would say, shaped the next few years for me because I was what's called publicly reproved. So I was not disfellowshipped, but I was stripped of any of my privileges, I guess I could say. So I wasn't allowed to comment at the meeting. I can't remember if you're allowed to go in service. I mean, this is a long time ago, right? But it was certainly a red mark on me, like for any type of association with other teenagers in the congregation. I was looked upon by the elders as, don't associate with her. She's not good association. So it was very damaging, especially in those pivotal years, when you're trying to find yourself and become a young woman. And it was absolutely a horrible experience. Yeah.
Well, did you finish school though before you guys eloped?
Yes. So, because we only left, we literally were gone for 7 days by the time they brought us back. And it was at the end of grade 12. So they brought us back, and I don't think he did. He didn't finish school, but I did. I graduated. Yeah.
And you guys did they keep your marriage legal or what?
Oh, we never did get there. No, because he was actually under 18. He was 17. And that we thought going to Alberta, which is a different province, that would be, he would be allowed to sign the registry, but he wasn't. So we never, thank God, did get married. They broke that one up. So that's good.
Oh
It
my
was, I'm
goodness.
glad that, yeah.
What made you want to elope with this guy?
Well, because at the time, of course, you're not allowed to date. So we weren't technically even allowed to see each other, right? He wasn't baptized. So I was to have nothing to do with him. And so we thought that our only option was, of course, and you know what? Sadly, a lot of JWs feel this way. The only option is to get married, right? And in that organization, you can only have sex if you're married. You know, you can, and so we thought that's what we had to do. So and our parents weren't going to let us do that because we were so young. So stupidly, we tried to do it ourselves.
Wow.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, that's kind of,
Mhm.
and I think it's kind of sad that, witnesses have to grow up in that kind of environment where everything, when you see a man and a woman, is considered taboo. So
Mhm.
when you begin to look at your situation that you were in, how did things unravel when you came back? What was your life
Oh,
like after you came back?
that was the hell. So, we come back and they instantly told me that he had been seeing someone else. And I was like, "Really? Okay, let me talk to him." And they wouldn't. They wouldn't let us see each other. And apparently, years later, I found out that they had told him exactly the same thing. So they just blatantly lied in order to separate us and get mad at and not want to see each other. So we never got to have any closure or see each other again. But that's when I was pulled into the committee meeting and was publicly reproved. Right. So that's get stripped of all my privileges. I lose a lot of my friends. My social circle diminishes because they're not really allowed to hang out with me. And that's, I think, when I really threw myself into working. Because at this point, I'm pissed. I'm pissed at the religion. I'm pissed that they lied to me. I'm pissed that I had to go through that committee meeting. And at the time, honestly, and I have to say, for many years, I also didn't believe the doctrines. I didn't like this religion at all. I wasn't happy in it. Um, so it was, yeah, it was not good.
When did you begin to wake up? Because I know this has been years ago. I know you just said that you didn't believe the doctrines, but when did you really wake up and realize that they had lied to you as a
Oh,
Jehovah's Witness?
oh, I think it was the whole 1914 thing. Was really like a big question to me, and I didn't like all the rules, but I had a maternal grandmother who I was very close with and who had a heart condition. And I knew that I had to stay in that religion until she died, or I would be the cause of her death. And she is honestly the reason why I stayed, because I knew, like, my entire maternal side of my family was JW. And I'm talking elders, circuit overseers, um, all of them were, except for my father. He actually was not an elder, but all my uncles, my grandfather, this wouldn't have been something easy for me to do, to break away. And so I knew I had to stick it out um, until she passed away. And honestly, like, I even ended up getting married about 2 years later to somebody else. And still the same thing. Like, I knew this wasn't, it ended up being a horrible, horrible marriage that, we could talk about in a bit, but that's what eventually, she died. And then eventually I left because I was done.
Man, now from the time you came back home from trying to elope to the time your grandmother died, how much time had lapsed?
7 years.
So that was a long time to live in that kind of a situation. But you said then you married 2 years later
Yeah. And that
before
marriage
you came
was
home.
5 years.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. How
Yeah.
did they treat you after you got married?
Well, that's why I chose to get married, because I figured that I needed something to tame me, basically. And I figured people would see me differently as somebody who was in good standing if I got married. Um, you know, just playing by the rules is what I was trying to do. But it ended up being a horrible, horrible relationship from the day we got married. He was not from Canada, he was from Europe. And he had family out here. That's how I had met him. He had come out here to visit family. And we decided to, well, he proposed to me and then went home, and he had to go home and get his papers in order. And that took about another year. So we kind of phoned and wrote each other. And then that was fine. But then as soon as he came out here and we got married, it was a complete switch. And he was just a misogynistic piece of crap that was so abusive in every aspect of the word, that it was, yeah, well, I mean, we can get into that story now if you want.
Was he baptized?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was full on witness. He was a ministerial servant in the country he was from.
Okay, so here we go again. Every time you turn around, a Jehovah's Witness is marrying somebody just because they're sitting at the Kingdom Hall. And now, because
Yep.
he's a Jehovah's Witness, he's fair game. He's a good mate, or she's a good mate, whoever, however you want to spin that. So now this marriage is not really what you want it to be. How long did you stay married to this brother?
5 years.
You got any
5 long
kids? You guys have
years.
any kids?
No. He told me that if we had children and it was a girl, that he would have nothing to do with it because girls are from Jezebel.
Oh, he
Not even
really was
kidding.
out there.
Oh my God. Yeah. I think he definitely had mental problems for sure.
And
Yeah.
then when you and you know, like a lot of people don't, if you're not a Jehovah's Witness, but most people that's watching in the audience understands that the only criteria that a woman needs to marry a man in this religion is they just got to be baptized, you know. And
Yep.
so when you think about the things that you would be looking at in a mate, you know, he was already in the game. He's a brother and he has a title already. So, you
Mhm.
know, what how did he appear before the people in the congregation? So he's married to you at home, acting one way, but how did he carry himself in public?
Oh, he was the best. He was the best, like he was earning more privileges. They were going to promote him to elder. He was very charming to the general public and to the congregation. But you get him behind closed doors and it was a completely different story, which sadly is the case in a lot of situations with men who have these tendencies in that organization, because they're given a lot of power, right? They're basically groomed to think that women are less than, that they have power over them, that they are the head of the house. It's not in no equality in there at all. It's all male dominant for sure.
Were you with him for 5 years in the house, or were you just with him for 5 years on paper?
Nope, 5 years in the house. 5 years in the house. And the abuse started the day of the wedding night. The wedding night, he basically like threw me on the bed, tried to rip off my clothes and forced me down. And I took off into the bathroom, locked myself in there, and slept in the bathtub that night. And I thought, oh shit, this is now my life. This is just what I've walked into. Like, then what do you say? What do you tell your family? You know, every member of my family is a JW. I can't go in there and annul this. I'm embarrassed, for one thing, that this has happened. So that's how it began, and it just skyrocketed from there. And nobody knew about it. I didn't tell anybody about that. And he was, like I said, so charming and wonderful to everybody in the congregation. Nobody had an idea. Also, he worked for my father, so that made it worse.
Oh my, so he had family ties too? Oh my goodness.
Mhm.
Ties to your
Yeah.
family, you know, because he's working for your father. Where's he at now?
Mhm. Okay, so this is a kind of a funny story. years ago, about, I'm going to say 7 years ago, I get a phone call from this woman in Oakland, California. And she said, I think we have something in common. And I'm like, what's that? And she says, we were married to the same guy. And I'm like, what? And she, I guess, was wife number two. And he did exactly the same stuff that he did to me. But when I left, the elders didn't believe me. And I'll get back to when I left and things like that. But she stayed for 10 years. They never had any children because he told her exactly the same thing. Um, and he worked for her dad too, which was bizarre. And I said, how in the world did you find me? And she said, oh, he still has a picture of you on our mantle. And I'm like, oh my God, what? And she said, yeah, he always claimed you were the true love of his life. And I'm like, oh, ugh, like get that off of there. That's awful. So he was wacko, like complete wacko. So at that time, he lived in the States, and she did phone me about 3 years ago and said, he's returned to Canada. And I said, well, I don't care. I'm not scared of him anymore. Like, he's not a threat to me. So I don't care at all, like what he does. So, yeah, as far as I know, I believe he's back in Canada, but I don't know.
So, like you said, he's out here doing this to other people, and it's hard to
Oh,
say who else after he married wife number two. But it's almost like the religion teaches its members to be so robotic, and I
mhm.
feel like maybe that's what he felt like because he's just dominating you, and
Yeah.
not even having any ounce of romanticism going
Oh God,
on
no.
your wedding night. You know what I'm saying? But
No, nothing at all. It was all control, all control. When he left wife number two, apparently, or actually, I think it was even before that, he's been disfellowshipped a few times for being, a violent, horrible person. And yet he keeps getting reinstated and going and getting back into the congregation, which is another thing that just blows my mind that they allow that, right? Because it's a repeated behavior, it's a pattern. He just keeps doing
yeah.
it.
But do you think that what happened to you with being publicly reproved is what made you stay with this man? Because if you get with someone, or maybe you're too young to really, understand that you can get out of these things. So, do you think that what happened to you getting publicly reproved is what kept you there so long?
No, it was my family. So because of my entire family, I knew I would lose them. And I struggled with that so badly because our family, when I say it was close. I'm talking when somebody moved, we all moved together. There was, I had two aunts and an uncle and like 13 cousins. And we literally, if one person moved to a different town, we all followed it. That's how close it was. We had family dinners every week. We had family parties. My uncle had a yacht. We used to go out on that all the time. We were very close. And I knew that I was going to lose all of that if I left, and I was also going to kill my grandmother. um, but what happened was the tipping point of that, what made me finally say, like, enough is enough, is, um, well, there was a couple things. The first one, I I actually tried to commit suicide. I did. I had it. I couldn't take it anymore. I didn't want to lose my family, but I thought he was going to kill me at that point. It was extremely violent. And so I took a bottle of sleeping pills and left a note beside me, laid down in my bed, and, you know, tried to end it. But I forgot to call in sick at work, and they kept calling me, which is what kept waking me up because I kept answering the phone. But that it ultimately saved my life, that I just kept coming out of my unconsciousness. And it took me a few days to come out of that. But when I did, that's when it all changed. It's something very strange happened too. When I woke up, um, my feet had grown two sizes, which is very bizarre. I don't know if that's a scientific thing that happens sometimes in a traumatic situation, but it made me question everything. And that is when, because my grandmother had actually just died just before that. Um, and so she was gone. That wasn't an issue anymore. But I just wanted to, I just wanted it to be over. I didn't want anything. I didn't want to lose it all. So that was my choice. But so I wake up and now I'm like, you know what? Him. Like, I am worth way more than this guy is. And that's when I decided to leave and change my life. And that's when it happened. Also, just at that time too, I had been cleaning because he was very, there's a whole bunch of stories I can share with how manipulative and horrible he was, but he liked things very tidy and clean and meticulous. And I was tidying up this night drawer one time beside his side of the bed, and some of these books fell over. They were Watchtower publications or whatever, and some candid pictures of young girls who, they weren't nudes or anything like that, but they were candid. These girls didn't know they were being photographed, and they looked like they were 12 to 14 years old. And I'm like, oh my God, he's a pedophile. Like, that just absolutely, that was it. That was it. I was out of there then. And that's when I left.
Stay tuned for the next episode, How Jada Escaped Her Abusive Jehovah's Witness Marriage. You can also find more details about Jada's Awaken to Freedom YouTube channel in the description of this video. Please like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss more stories and insights right here on Hidden Struggles.